So this video is for integrated one. This is the classwork that we did in class. It's on Canvas. It is something that we did together and then we submitted. So a couple of things we just want to make sure we understand before we get into this. I just added onto my paper here just to kind of talk about a few things. If we have parallel lines cut by a transversal, these are called alternate interior angles, and they are congruent. Again, these ones here are also alternate interior angles and they are congruent. So that's a fact that we want to understand. Another fact we want to understand is if we have two lines intersecting, they form what we call vertical angles, angle 1 here and angle 2. And these vertical angles are always congruent to each other. That's another fact. Another situation, if we have two triangles that share a side, this side that they share is in both my orange triangle and it's also in my green triangle. So it is the same exact side in both triangles. And that means that this line segment BD is congruent to itself, BD. And we have a name for that. That's called the reflexive property. Okay, so those are a few ideas that we want to understand. Also, we want to remember our triangle congruencies. Side, side, side is a triangle congruency. Side, angle, side, where we have two sides with the angle in between. Angle, side, angle, where we have two angles with the side in between the two angles. Angle, angle, side, where we have two angles and a side that's not in between. And hypotenuse leg, where we have a right triangle and we have the hypotenuse and a leg. These 5 are our triangle congruency properties that we're going to be using. So let's get started on the assignment. So what we're doing in this is we're deciding whether or not things are congruent, triangles are congruent. We're going to say, yes, they are congruent, no, they aren't congruent. Do what we call a congruence triangle statement and give a reason, okay? So in this situation, what you'll notice is this line segment here and this line segment here are the same, okay? So we know that these two triangles have two sides that are the same. You might also notice that this is in both triangles. It's in the one on the left and the one on the right. So we know that that's congruent to itself. And again, just a little reminder, the name of that is reflexive. So looking at this, I also have this right angle. So these two triangles are congruent because of, I'm just going to write this in green, side, angle, side, side, angle, side. That's the reason that these are congruent, okay? Now, when we say that triangle VUX is congruent to triangle, we need to make sure that we match things up. So in this triangle, angle V right here is going to be the same as this angle, okay? They're in the same location. This angle down here is going to be in the same location as and maybe I don't want to put markings on it like that. I'm going to maybe highlight it, okay? So we have this angle U and V are in the same spot. This X is in both triangles and this V is in both triangles. So what's going to happen is when we say VUX, that's going to correspond with VW, because W is in the same spot as UX. I have to keep that same order. So this is going to be VWX. On number 2. So on this, they're telling us that F is a midpoint of D, G, and E, H. Okay, so this line segment is being cut in half because that is a midpoint. So this and this are going to be the same. We also know this segment right here is also being cut in half. And so this angle, this side, sorry, and this side are also going to be the same as each other. Now, I have an angle here and an angle here. These are vertical angles, okay? Because here we have one line intersecting the other. So these angles are going to be congruent. So from this picture, I have side, angle, side. So this is going to be side, angle, side. And when we're doing this, we want to make sure that we have things in the same order. So D is right here on the end point of this green line. So G is going to correspond to it in the other triangle. So I'm going to call that G. E is over here at the end of this pink. That's going to correspond with H. They're in the same spot in the other triangle. And then F is here in the middle for both of them. Okay, and again, this statement, triangle DEF, congruent to triangle GHF, the order matters. D corresponds with G, E corresponds with H, F corresponds with F. We call this a congruent statement. So if they ask you to make a congruent statement, that's what they mean. Okay, number 3. So we know that BAC, this line right here, is going to bisect an angle. The angle it's going to bisect is BCD. BCD. It bisects that angle. So when it bisects it, what that means is this angle here and this angle here are going to be the same because it cuts it in half. We also know that angle B is congruent to D. So this angle here is congruent to this angle here. So I've got 2 angles, but that line I drew in orange is actually shared in both triangles. So it is congruent to itself. And again, we call that situation reflexive. So these 2 triangles are congruent. They're congruent by angle, side. Again, we have 2 angles on the side, but the side is not in between. So it's not angle, side, angle. It's angle, side. So this is angle, side. And then when I'm trying to match A, B, C, A is going to correspond with A over here. B is going to correspond with D. And C is going to correspond with C. So this is going to be triangle ADC. On 4, we know that AB is congruent to CD, so those are going to be the same. They also are telling us that this line is parallel with this line. So what that means is we have maybe a transversal. So this line right here, which actually is shared between both triangles. So it is going to be the same in both triangles. So again, that's reflexive property. But that transversal is giving me this angle here between my transversal and my parallel line. And this angle here between the transversal and the parallel line on the other side. That's called alternate interior angles, and alternate interior angles are congruent. So what I have here is side, angle, side. So these are going to be congruent by side, angle, side. Now you want to be careful. A does not correspond with A. See, A here in this triangle has this green angle. It corresponds to this green angle. C in the other triangle. B is going to correspond with D. And C in this one, which is blank, corresponds with A in this one, which is blank. So you want to be careful The letters are not necessarily in the same spot. It depends on the diagram. Number 5. So we want to figure out why these two triangles are congruent. So again, we have a midpoint. So it says that F is the midpoint of both these line segments. So since it's the midpoint of this, DF and BF are going to be the same. And it is also the midpoint of this, which means this one and this one are going to be the same. And the other bit of information I have is we do have intersecting lines. And that means that these two angles are going to be what we call vertical angles, and vertical angles are the same. So these two triangles, why are they congruent? Because of side, angle, side. So this is going to be by side, angle, side congruence. On 6. So in this situation, they're telling me that, so this is slightly different than the same picture, but different markings, okay? This one was side, angle, side. So over here, I know that DE is congruent to BA. So these are congruent. I also know that this line is parallel with this line. So I can really go about doing this 2 different ways. I can think about this line here, which is not shared between the 2 triangles, okay? Part of it's in one, part of it's in the other, but it forms a transversal. And on that transversal, I have this angle here and this angle here, which are going to be the same. And again, we call those alternate interior angles. Now, I could also do this and say, okay, I have another transversal. And on this transversal, I have this alternate interior angle and this alternate interior angle. So if I'm drawing this picture, then this situation is going to be angle, side, angle. Okay. Now, I could have taken that same situation, okay, and let me just draw out the triangles. Okay, so I'm just gonna, let's say I have those triangles. Again, I know that this is congruent to this. That was given. Let's say I also do this one here, and I say, hey, this is a transversal between those 2 parallel lines. So this angle here and this angle here are the same. Okay, so right now I've done the same thing I did in the original one. But something I could do different is I actually have vertical angles here. So I could say, I'm just going to try to get this a little thinner. So I could say that this angle here and this angle here are the same because of vertical angles. Now, this reasoning is not going to be the same as the other reasoning. This is angle, side, angle. This is going to be angle, angle, side. So this one here would have been angle, angle, side. Both are acceptable, but it differs the reasoning depending on what you are marking. Okay, so your markings better match your reason. Okay, on number 7. On 7, we have perpendicular, BC is perpendicular to AD. So BC is here, it's perpendicular to this. So that means that those are going to be 90 degrees. Okay, those are going to be 90 degrees. Now, I also know that this line right here, let me draw it in a different color. This line right here is shared between both triangles. So I have a side and an angle, but I don't have enough information. I don't know anything at all about this. I can't just look and go, hey, they look like they're the same. I can't say that. I also don't know these angles. I don't know it split this angle in half. It didn't say it. These lines might look the same, but I don't know that they are. So this one is not necessarily congruent. I don't have enough information. Now 8 is basically the same picture, and we have pretty much the same information with one exception. Here they're saying that BD and AD are perpendicular. Here it says BC is a perpendicular bisector of AD. So that means that this BC, which both triangles share, like they did in the other one, so they're going to be congruent to each other, is going to take this segment and bisect it. So this side here and this side here are going to be the same as each other. I did not know that over here. Now it is a perpendicular bisector, so that also means that I know I have that 90 degree. So now, even though it's the same picture and very close to the same information, the difference is this word bisector. Now I have side, angle, side. So these are going to be congruent by side, angle, side. And triangle A, B, C is going to correspond with D, B, C. We have to do that order. On 9, I know AB is perpendicular to BD, so that means that this is going to be a right angle. I also know that this BD is perpendicular to this, so this is going to be a right angle. So I know both of these are right angles, okay? So they at least have an angle that are going to be the same. Then the next thing, we know that this side here, AB, is going to be equal to ED. Okay, those are the same. That was given. I also know that AC is going to be the same as EC. That was given. Now, in this situation here, we have a right angle. It looks like side angle, which is not a property, but because this is a right triangle, if I know two sides of a right triangle, the third one's going to be determined. So this is going to be congruent because of hypotenuse leg. We call this hypotenuse leg. And triangle A, B, C, A corresponds with E, so I'm going to put E first. B corresponds with D, and then my C corresponds with C. Number 10. In this situation, we're going to have two triangles, okay? Let me just draw a triangle, okay? And I'm just going to change it so it doesn't look like anything in particular, okay? And I have another triangle, so I'm going to copy paste this, okay? So I have another triangle. And we're going to call this, let's say one of them we call A, B, C, and I'm going to call the other one D, E, F. Now they say that AB is congruent to DE. They tell us that AC is congruent to FE. So this one is congruent to this one. Now, what we want to decide is if this is true. So when we're looking at this, when they give us A, B, C, and triangle D, E, F, we know that AB is congruent. Let me just highlight. So AB is congruent to DE. We also know that, and I'll do this in orange, maybe not orange, I'll do it in blue, okay? So that worked out. We know that EF is congruent to AC. We see that there's a problem here, okay? They're not in the right order. So are these triangles congruent? No, these triangles are not congruent. We also were given this angle A is congruent to angle F. So this is A, this is F. You'll notice that this angle is not in the same location. This angle here should have corresponded to D, to the one at E, not the one at F. So again, these are not in the same spot. So this is going to be not congruent.